good, my boy.
What the fuck have you done? You know, it was bad enough that you completely raped the original Terminator timeline with Terminator Genesis and the retcon garbage you bullshitted into that mess, literally turning John Connor into the goddamn Terminator and erasing the timeline altogether. But in all honesty, that film was so magnificently bad that I could at least watch it and laugh at the ineptitude of the shitty writers' attempts to break new ground. Terminator Dark Fate was meant to right the wrong of the later Terminator movies and get the series back on track, hopefully ending it once and for all. Because I'm sick of studio executives still trying to beat the dead horse that is this franchise. And yet for the second fucking time, Fox Studios has screwed up a series with a rebooted timeline designed to correct the mistakes and help people re-engage with the story. Now let me preface this that a person on my Discord mercifully sent me the leaks for this movie in order to cushion the blow for the imminent buttfuckery to one of my favorite film franchises of all time. Something integral to my childhood and growth as a human being. With all that said, the leaks were so bad, so unbelievably horrible and completely utterly retarded that I didn't believe them when he sent them to me. I was like, no, this cannot be real. There aren't people who are alive with jobs that make millions of dollars in this profession who could possibly be that tone deaf and stupid when it comes to writing and helming a fucking movie. But much to my horror, the leaks were almost 100% correct. And not only were they correct, but oh dear God, the execution was far, far worse than I ever could have predicted. Now, I've made 2 trailer breakdowns discussing this movie, and neither of them had much of anything positive to say. And I predicted, hell, we all predicted that this movie would be an absolute dumpster fire, but Jesus Christ, Hollywood, you surpassed our expectations. You went
even further beyond
the realms of comprehensible stupidity. And it's my opinion that this Terminator movie is the worst and most insulting to the franchise yet. I can absolutely understand if you hate Genesis more than this film, and this is a fresh wound, so maybe I need to rewatch Genesis to regain my perspective. But the reason why I'm less pissed off with Genesis is that despite wiping out the mainline Terminator timeline, the film ended with a corrected future, and our characters having a time of peace ahead of them. Those timelines were erased, but at the very least they served a purpose in bringing peace to a world without Skynet. Not saying I approve of what they did, I'm just saying that there was a purpose to it. Dark Fate, on the other hand, retcons everything that happened after Terminator 2. The good and the bad, in order to facilitate and spawn a discount Judgment Day plot in the hopes of spawning a new franchise of Terminator films littered with identity politics and feminist propaganda woke bullshit. I won't break down the entire film, since I honestly want to cleanse myself of this disaster as quickly as humanly possible. I'm just going to go in depth on the parts that pissed me off the most. But before I do, some quick, small positives. The action in this film, while looking terrible in a lot of instances, was actually better than I thought it would be. It was intense and decently choreographed. I appreciated the R rating, which made the action feel more impactful and real. At least until they ripped off The Dark Knight Rises and had that bombastic aviator sky battle bullshit. The new Terminator, also known as the Rev 9, I found to be reasonably likable. I like that they gave Latino Apu something of a personality. He obviously wasn't anywhere close to gripping me in the fear like Robert Patrick did back in Terminator 2, but he was certainly more likable than Jason Clarke in Terminator Genesis. I also found the Terminator design to be somewhat practical and put to good use in the movie, despite it being completely derivative of Kristanna Loken's TX model from Terminator 3. I heard some people say that this movie ruined Sarah Connor, and I respectfully disagree. She's no doubt a lesser version of her former self from the good Terminator films. Her badassery comes across as a little too forced at times, but her portrayal can be understood given what has happened to her in the story since the events of Terminator 2. And I thought Linda Hamilton gave the standout performance of the movie, and I'll admit, it was pretty cool to see her kicking ass again. However, it's hard to take her seriously when the foundation they've used to build up this new Sarah Connor and her motivations is complete and utter contrived shit. And that goes the same with Arnie's character. He's in the film, and he adds some humor and levity to the movie, and he's enjoyable to watch, as always. But his backstory and involvement with the film is equally as bullshit as that of Sarah Connor. And that's about it. the only positives of the movie. 2 legacy characters and a slightly charismatic discount Latino Terminator X. So now we've got the positives out of the way, let's get into this shit. So immediately the film starts off by making it absolutely clear that this is a continuation of the original Terminator timeline, a direct sequel to Terminator 2, as it shows Sarah Connor's psychiatric interview verbatim as the opening credits of the film are introduced. Fuck you. It then cuts to a CGI orgy fest in 1998, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is some years after Terminator 2, and a CGI Edward Furlong as John Connor is portrayed as having not aged a day, as does CGI young Sarah Connor, who literally hasn't changed at all. Same hairstyle, same glasses, same clothing, from when she was kicking ass back in Terminator 2, despite this being supposedly a family outing at the fucking beach. But then the kicker. A CGI Arnie that looks so god-awful, no joke, I'm talking Carrie Fisher levels of CGI awfulness. CGI Arnie, as another T-800 shows up, walks right up to John Connor and shoots him to Kingdom Come, with a shotgun, clean and simple. The most important character in the entire Terminator saga, killed off in the first 2 minutes, unceremoniously, like it was nothing. Once again, rendering the previous 2 Terminator films utterly pointless. It really feels like James Cameron and Tim Miller wanted to give longtime fans the biggest middle finger they could possible, because what the actual fuck? I was aware of John Connor's death thanks to the leaks, but my god, I thought they might have handled it with some goddamn finesse. I thought we'd see an aged Edward Furlong being pursued by a T-800 sent from the future that might chase him down in the city streets or down the highway in his car, and maybe we'd see John Connor utter some final words or make a last desperate stand. But instead, they shove this shit in our face and tell us to fucking deal with it, in the most blunt and insulting way possible. My reaction was something like this. I was speechless, and basically from that point on, any and all investment I had in the movie was out the fucking window. And the reason why they killed off John Connor makes this whole thing even worse, but we'll get there. Then we flash forward to the arrival of Cunt 1000, who shows up and falls flat on her face from above a city street as she falls out of the time portal. And you know what? I use the term Cunt 1000 as a humorous Terminator pun to outline my disdain for the character, but wow. Maybe I'm some kind of unconfirmed prophet, because that's exactly what this character is. An absolute 100% flat-out unlikable cunt. Her acting in both serious, humorous, and emotional scenes is laughable for the most part. And in just about every interaction with Sarah Connor and Arnie's T-800, she is always so unnecessarily confrontational, looking to start fights, threatening other people who are trying to help her, flattering herself as the super soldier from the future. Yes, she actually strokes her ego with that line. Every time she opens her fucking mouth, you just wanted to shut the fuck up and die. Which, thankfully she does, so there's another positive. Also, keeping with rip-offs, the entire premise for Cunt 1000's Terminator is stolen from Terminator Salvation, as she's supposed to be a human being with augmentations, right? I mentioned a lot of these points in my Feminator Dark Fuckery trailer breakdown, that this movie is deleting the entire timeline after Terminator 2, but is aping off them in spades. Taking all of the best elements and ideas and combining them into this clusterfuck, the human Terminator with augmentations, the liquid metal over hard chassis metal skin Terminator, targeting Terminators in moments in time when they know they're going to appear, Arnie dying at the end, sacrificing himself, and in Terminators 2 and 3, along with Cunt 1000 removing a power source as a means to kill the Terminator, and the truck chases and helicopter chases, which you can all recognize where those were taken from. This abomination is one gigantic plagiarized piece of shit. But possibly the biggest sin it commits is rewriting the whole premise of Terminator, with the same premise, but this version is littered with miscast, forced diversity, garbage actors, and the characters are even worse. Yes, Sarah Connor and her son, prophesized leader of the Resistance, defeated Skynet, wiped out the apocalyptic timeline, erasing the war with the machines. Yet James Cameron pulls an extra T-800 out of his asshole, literally out of nowhere, to blast John Connor out of existence? And we are told by the film that several more Terminators still fell out of time, and Sarah Connor hunted them down and killed them. Simple as that. And now she's this badass Terminator hunter with no questions asked. Fuck off. Okay, so if Skynet was destroyed and the whole timeline with it, how do these retconninators exist? Because they really shouldn't, seeing as Skynet never sent them in the first place. But guess what? Cunt 1000 tells us that she was sent back through time. Fuck you. To protect Latina chick. Fuck you. Because she is the key to the future. Fuck you. Because the machines have wiped out everything in the future. Fuck you. And they are controlled by an artificial intelligence which is called Legion. Fuck you. It's the same exact plotline from Terminators 1 and 2 with literally everything but the only female legacy character and the other legacy character who's only around as a marketing ploy thrown out and replaced with someone that doesn't have a dick, and if they do happen to have a dick, you can bet your ass they ain't white. And that's what pisses me off the most about this movie. They are telling the watered-down, unoriginal, second-rate, diversity-infested dogshit version of the same goddamn story, simply to appease the hordes of Twitter, far-left, fanatical, skin-color-obsessed, beta-cuck psychopaths. Because they're dumb enough to think that that will make money. And because they're too stupid to come up with something original, instead they're going to opt to erase the old and usher in more old with a fresh female coat of paint and call it new. It's like, hey guys, John Connor didn't end anything. He was pointless. The previous two movies don't matter. They're simply a means to an end of the true heroes of the story. Cunt 1000 and Latina chick Bimbo, both of which can't act, and both characters that absolutely suck. Cunt 1000 even tells Latina chick Bimbo almost verbatim, you don't give birth to some man that saves the future. You are the future. Wow. Go fuck yourself, Mr. Cameron.
What happened to you, man? Used to be cool.
I'm still cool.
Nah, you've changed, man.
Anyway, let's talk about Arnie's bullshit. So the story with the T-800 and why it's even in this shitfest to begin with is that the T-800 was one of several that was sent back in time to kill John by Skynet. Skynet, which now doesn't exist because of the timeline that was erased by Terminator 2. Let's pretend for a second that the timeline wasn't erased and Skynet was still able to send these Terminators back through time. Why didn't they make this movie a couple years after Terminator 2, since apparently this is what James Cameron had always envisioned for the franchise?
It's being very respectful of the first two films. I feel like the franchise has been reinvigorated, like this is a renaissance. It's work. The new film, which in my mind I think of as the third film. If you like the Terminator films, I'll be back. You're gonna love this movie.
The answer is that the story was never heading in this direction, and would have been lambasted in 1995, and now it's still going to be rightfully burnt to the ground present day, but sadly in 2019, there's this little thing called Twitter that exists, with a circle jerk of a bunch of loudmouthed, overly liberal, psychotic motherfuckers that won't shut the fuck up about the oppression that's all but non-existent against minorities and gender in Western culture as of 2019. And clambering for this retcon bullshit to be thrown into our movies to preach a message that simply does not belong and became obsolete 30 fucking years ago. And that's why James Cameron wrote the story continuation now in 2019. And that's why the existence of more Terminators suddenly existing to murder John Connor from the future, from the timeline he erased, is jarring as fuck and feels so wrong. Because this was never planned and was pulled completely out of thin fucking air. Anyway, after walking up to John Connor and killing him in approximately 5 seconds, CGI Arnie walks off without any more orders, realizing that he's super bored with nothing to do, and so he hops on Tinder, finds some pansexual abstinent MILF who's okay with not hopping on his giant metal dick, which I find to be complete bullshit because look at this sexy stallion. You have this marble statue walking around parenting your son in your own house every day, hour after hour, week after week, and you're telling me she ain't hankering for a spanking? Arnie says the relationship is not physical. Meanwhile, she's probably off banging the grocery store clerk every time Arnie is babysitting a kid that isn't his. They actually cucked the Terminator, and you don't ever cuck the Terminator. Anyway, look, I know someone's gonna reference the line at the end of T2.
Because if a machine, a Terminator, can learn the value of human life, maybe we can too.
But that's crap. Understanding the value of life and why people get upset and adopting human mimicry like smiling at a joke, etc., doesn't equate to an abstinent relationship and raising a child. How the fuck did someone with the caliber for storytelling like James Cameron ever think this was an idea that audiences could ever possibly take seriously? Oh yeah, and apparently the Terminator feels guilt for killing John, and decided to text Sarah Connor the date and coordinates for all remaining Terminators that Skynet sent back in time. Remember when I said that Sarah Connor says she hunts Terminators? Yeah, well the way she finds these Terminators is apparently after years and years of nothing, out of the blue, she was sitting on the toilet one day dealing with her menopause, and all of a sudden received an anonymous text with dates and coordinates, with the words at the end of each text, for John. And off-screen being Tim Miller's best fucking friend and close ally to Sarah Connor allows her to single-handedly woman the Terminators to death. For all she fucking knew, she was being pranked or sent to someone who was a friend of John's, or maybe sent to find something that belonged to John. Instead, she gets blindsided by a killing machine and we're supposed to believe she killed them as easy as 1, 2, 3? What if it was another T-1000? And what if it was the TX? What if it was a suicide Terminator? Good luck killing one of those and escaping with your life. Speaking of which, why doesn't Skynet just send back a Terminator that can just blow itself up and level a small block? This applies to all the Terminator movies. The T-800 has a nuclear power source, correct? Why don't they just blow themselves up when close to the target? It's not like Skynet's going to give a shit about human casualties. But yeah, back on point. We are just told Sarah Connor hunts Terminators, and apparently she does this casually without any issues after receiving anonymous text messages from a self-aware Terminator who knows their exact day of arrival, and is doing this because she wants to give Sarah's life some kind of purpose. No joke, that's the fucking explanation for the Terminator's actions. And now, just out of the blue, he wants to help them fight against Latino Apu. Go fuck yourself, Mr. Cameron. Oh yeah, there's this whole section in a detention center on the Mexican border where the discount John Connor with tits is being held captive, and we see Cunt 1000 show up and start freeing all of the immigrant cages. And then Latino Apu shows up as the Terminator and starts wasting all of the evil detention officers that were just doing their jobs whilst conveniently sparing every single immigrant that is clearly obstructing him. I've said this in my previous video, but I'll reiterate it here. If people from the master race can pick up on the inclusion of political commentary that only applies to the United States, then that is very bad for the movie. Because I can only imagine how jarring this was for people who are living in the United States. Anyway, they take Joanna Connor to Arnie's ranch and decided to train her as she has no training with a gun before and she needs to learn how to defend herself. And the only time she ever held a gun was when Cunt 1000 collapsed in a pharmacy and she was close enough to shoot all of the innocent people at point blank range. So rightfully, she's training and failing at shooting a pistol. Cunt 1000 is correcting her stance and helping her technique. After Latina John misses 2 or 3 shots, Sarah Connor hands her a tactical shotgun, a weapon with far more fucking recoil and what I imagine would take someone with a lot more strength and skill to handle proficiently. Saga Connor whispers in Latina John's ear, "A Terminator has just killed your whole family. What are you gonna do about it?" And then presto, Latina John is an instant sharpshooter, hitting all of her targets with pinpoint accuracy because that's how learning an extremely skilled and deadly craft is supposed to happen. Oh yeah, speaking of Latina John's family, they all get killed within like the first 10 minutes of the movie, and she literally never talks about them again. She doesn't go into why her father and brother meant so much to her, no memories she's fond of concerning them, and no mementos she has to remind her of them. It really is just a rehash of Terminator arrives, kills a loved one, takes their identity, and tries to kill its next victim, whilst getting exposed by the Terminator on the opposite team, much to the terror of our protagonist. Seriously, this chick and her derivative, politically motivated abortion of a story is the reason they gave John Connor his brutal execution in the opening 5 minutes. And none of her story is compelling. Absolutely none of it. It's just everything we've seen before from the perspective of someone with tits. Again. So I guess I should say it's from the perspective of a minority with tits, because that's literally the only difference in plot. Except this bitch don't need to birth no man to save the world. And yeah, to go even further, none of the characters are likable. Absolutely none of them. Just the legacy characters, and that's it. And even so, the legacy characters, while I did like them, were really just heavily watered down, slightly comedic versions of their former selves. And both are treated with such disrespect in order to have their storylines play out so ham-fistedly on screen. Oh yeah, apparently to kill the Terminator, they need a military-grade EMP. This EMP, electromagnetic pulse, is brought up as the MacGuffin of the movie about 3/4 through, and it's the only conceivable way to kill Latino Apu. Now you'd think Saga Connor, Cunt 1000, OG Arnie, and Vaginal John Connor would have to break into a highly secured facility and retrieve said item so that they can use it or destroy it. It would be perilous, suicidal, and they may die trying. Nope. No, apparently these SJW writing fucktards are so entitled that they think the army should go to them. Because that's how easy writing is supposed to be, right? So they cook up some military ranking officer, a major of color in fact, which doesn't matter to me personally by any means, but with all the diversity shoved into this movie already, I thought it was worth mentioning. You be the judge. Anyway, Black Major, who doesn't have a name as far as I know, and the movie barely, if at all, bothered to mention, somehow knows Sarah Connor from off-screen, respects Sarah Connor for things she did off-screen, and managed to obtain a highly dangerous military device to be used by fugitives off-screen. This moment is so lazy and utterly fucked up that I burst out into immediate laughter upon witnessing this lunacy. As if they thought anyone would give a solitary fuck about this or take this moment with any degree of seriousness. You know, I had a brother in the army who was in charge of artillery equipment. What if I told him it's a matter of life and death and I need 4 kilograms of C4 and a remote detonator? Reckon he'd get me the C4? Well, probably not, but let's say for a moment that he did agree. Do you think there's any chance of him walking out of that base with those lethal explosives? Fuck no. I don't care who this major is or what his relationship to Saga Connor is, and I don't buy for a second that he'd risk so much for this fugitive. And I don't give a shit about what their non-existent relationship is because I don't see it. This is contrived bullshit thrown in at the last minute in order to push the plot, and that's why it makes no fucking sense, and that's why I hate it. Oh yeah, there's one more thing. When they're asking for help from Joanna Connor's uncle, she tells him straight up that there's deadly machines from the future coming to kill them. She says this in the most uncompelling, casual tone that you could imagine, and the uncle asks her to prove it. So Cunt 1000 takes a knife and chops a fly in half while it's in mid-air. This, again, made me unintentionally laugh out loud. And what made it funnier is that this is all it takes for the uncle to fucking buy their ludicrous story. Not like in other Terminator films, where people needed some of the most blunt and traumatic visual convincing to make them understand the magnitude of their dire situation. And honestly, this is about as far as I can stomach writing this review. Terminator Dark Fate is a movie I wholeheartedly hate more than any other Terminator movie. Terminator 3 and Salvation weren't perfect by any stretch, but there were a lot of good elements mixed in with the bad. Terminator Genesis was an embarrassment, but hilarious and campy. It's a writing disaster, but I can still find some enjoyment out of that movie. I think the argument for what the objectively worst Terminator movie is warrants further discussion, but the reason I hate Terminator Dark Fate the most is because it was supposed to be the second chance to correct all of the mistakes of all of the other sequels and give us a third and fulfilling chapter to the original Terminator story. And what it was instead was nothing short of an insulting, disrespectful, absolutely retarded abomination, helmed by some of the most cuntish people in Hollywood with the intent, once again, to tear down the old and replace it with the new with political garbage nonsense that act as a detriment to the story, and it's shoved in your face at the expense of longtime fan favorite characters and plot threads, in the most blatant middle finger to people who have been fans of this series since childhood. I'm the kind of person who calls it how I see it. It's the very reason I made my earlier videos breaking down the Terminator Dark Fate trailers. And I'll admit, even I felt like I was being a little too presumptuous as to my thoughts on the quality of this movie based on those trailers. But after watching this movie, I now understand I was being too lenient. Terminator Dark Fate is the worst Terminator movie to date, and it's undoubtedly the most disrespectful and insulting Terminator to date. Fuck James Cameron, fuck Tim Miller, and fuck Terminator Dark Fate. Done. Now, before I go, I want to say a quick thank you to all my Patreon and Subscribe Star supporters. You guys are incredible, and I appreciate all the kind donations. If you'd like to support the channel with a monthly donation, the links for Patreon and Subscribe Star will be in the description below. And if you'd like to chat with me and my community, the public Discord link will also be in the description. You can interact with a lot of like-minded people about subjects you may have a lot of interest in. And finally, if you're interested in more movie reviews and videos like this, I've linked a select few in the description that you may find entertaining, and I hope you enjoy them. So, thanks for staying to the end of the video, I very much appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.